Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly on planet Earth. We appreciate you joining us here with Bret Lueder, our co host today on our ET Cosmic Earth Chronicles. But he has esoteric guide we're working on our trying to fluff it up a little bit with YouTube channels. He's already got 16 to 19 and looks like he's being very holy today with his sweaters. Is
Just
it
trying to
cold?
cover that up a little bit.
Is it cold? I'm in Florida. It's so chilly here today. So,
It is
uh,
cold here, yes.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've been working together since 2012, and we've invited Janet Lessin of Hawaii. We'll get the weather report there. But today, I guess we're going to turn it over to Bret and let Bret. This is actually our third recording, but I've just got one up today for 2024. Our last recording today on the Theresa J Morris community. If anyone's interested, and I did send it to you, Bret, but if you need me to send it to you again, I will. So that's the last one we did. So this will be number 2. I don't know where to put it yet. So I guess once it's all live and recorded. Last time we did live, it didn't seem to want to make it where it was easily downloadable and recordable on YouTube. So I do know a lot of people are on Facebook getting this, 3 or 4 of my show accounts, channel accounts, and also on LinkedIn, and it's going on X, which used to be Twitter, and on LinkedIn, blah blah. So it's getting out there, Bret, as we do this now, but it
Good.
is recording. So whatever it is that the universe wants us to show up and take witness to, I guess we've been doing this a while. We know how to do it. So wherever you want to take it, and if I see Janet, I will pump her on here. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, wish Janet could be here right now. Hopefully she'll join us soon. But hello, everybody. My name is Bret Lueder. I'm the author of A UFO Hunter's Guide from 2012 and the author of Song in Your Heart, The Story of the Search for the Lost Note from 2008. And I'm currently writing a book called Agents of Ascension Book 1, UFO PR. And it's about how public relations has controlled the narrative of UFOs from the beginning. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I have the fortunate and lucky opportunity to interview this beautiful and handsome, intelligent, experienced woman named TJ Morris.
I wouldn't
I
say
think
all
I think
that.
you have
I
what do
wouldn't
you have
say
like
all that. But
what do you
thank
have
you.
like 15 Facebook accounts and all
20
these
and
different
more. Yeah.
TJ Morris, Theresa Thurman Morris,
Yeah.
Theresa Thurman. I can't name them all, but if you guys look on Facebook, you can find her easy. And of course, at the beginning and end of the shows, you'll get to see her contact information. But I'm excited to interview TJ because she is specialized in ascension since
Amen.
she'd been doing it for decades before I met her. And I met her in 2012, where she interviewed me for my book, A UFO Hunter's Guide, which came out in 2012. So
It's been a long time, 2012.
it's been 11 years.
Wow.
It's like when I look at the past now, I see it as like a dream. It seems to be going by so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
So,
get the glare off my glasses. I apologize. I could turn a
well,
light on, but I don't think it'll help. Let me.
I think it makes you more ethereal. That's
Okay. Well, I'll be more ethereal today.
your sparkling ascension side is coming through.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
when
Well,
if you want to see my eyes, just tell me to take them off. But I can't see a darn thing. I've got several pair of glasses, of course, like most women. But Janet doesn't like some of the ones, so this one is for studying. And yes, I got black under my eyes to be uniquely different, so
okay.
you can at least see them. I hope.
You
But
know,
if not, just listen to our voices, Bret. I guess. Where is Janet? I'm gonna call her. I'm going to mute and call her while you're talking about esoterics.
okay, but don't take too long. I'm going to set you up real quick, but don't
Okay.
take too long, okay? Okay. So, TJ Morris, there's many reasons why I want to interview TJ Morris. And Ascension, I think, is at the top of that list. Her experience coming up in the 60s and 70s doing what we call now the New Age thing, New Age. She was doing this in terms of ascension and not calling it New Age, and just dealing with channelers and ancient texts, and then how that merged with computers and now AI and also the government. And so while I've spent a lot of time studying what government is and what it's supposed to be and how human beings are supposed to interface with this government, TJ's kind of overlooked that and went straight to this is what we have to work with. Let's work with it and move forward. There's nothing we can really do or say about it, and move forward. So I'm fascinated by that concept and that viewpoint. And I think another thing that makes me want to interview TJ Morris is she's come into contact with so many rich and famous people.
Ooh.
And I every so often we'll be talking and she'll drop a name and she'll be like, "Oh, I didn't tell you that I'd met Michael Jackson's people." Right? Or, and so for those reasons and more, which you guys will all see today, I've really wanted to interview TJ Morris for a long time. So I think we're joined by Janet Lessin, who's going to hopefully help me here.
Yeah, she knows a lot about me, but let me see. She apparently is not ready for her close-up, Brett, which she normally is. She's a
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
How do we know that's you, Janet, and not AI?
It's the redhead. That's my avatar. No, okay. I haven't had a shower in 2 days because the water's broke and I'm all greasy.
I can't hear you.
I'm not at my computer, so I don't have my background. And so just look at this nice little redhead.
Okay, Theresa.
Oh, God.
You can't hear Janet right now?
Hold on, my granddaughter. Baby, I can't be bothered with anything right now. I'm recording live with people, okay? I'm sorry. Just get the mop or just leave it alone. I told you I can't do anything while I'm live recording. Oh, God.
The joy of grandparenting.
Yes. Yes, reality sets in. So, no, I missed the whole Janet intro. I apologize. But, she'll
I'm here because I had to switch computers and I had to call the water guy, and I said, I'm on the radio too. So you have your granddaughter. I have the water repair people. What's going on for you, Brad? Who interrupts you when you're doing shows?
Well, hold on. Can you hear Janet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can you?
All right. I just wanted to make sure we're past that and we can all hear each other.
We can all hear each other.
Nobody actually bothers me except I'm staying at a buddy's house, and I'm in my little trailer, and the neighbor behind me has a chicken coop. So every so often the chickens fly up on top of our fence right outside my motorhome and crawl into this tree and sit there and cluck. And maybe I think they get into arguments. So right now, those are the only people that bother me. The chicken people.
Chicken people.
Yeah.
The chicken splits. Okay.
Okay.
So what are we talking about today?
Let's interview TJ Morris.
All right.
Okay. So I have some questions for her. I'll get it started and then we'll swing it to you. And I'll bet you money you've got some questions for her.
I certainly do.
Okay. All right. And just for those that don't know Janet is a Sitchin scholar, and her and her husband Sasha have been bringing forth, correct me if I'm wrong, Janet, newer interpretations of Sitchin's material, or furthering it along the path.
Yeah, that's about right.
Flushing out some of the stories,
simplifying it a little bit, because if you read the original Sitchin texts, they're kind of dry. It's like going to college, and so. It's a whole. But also we're incorporating other people, like Neil Freer and Lawrence Gardner, and
I had the pleasure of I've seen 2 of Zechariah's lectures, and I actually went down to LA back in I forget when that was, in the 90s, and I got certified as a Sitchin scholar, and so
class. Because there were only a couple hundred people there.
Maybe, yeah, I forget. But my point is, I got to interview him one time, And at the time, I'd only read 3 of the 8 of the Earth Chronicles books, the first 8 of this major thesis. And I brought up Neil Freer because Sitchin wrote a foreword to Neil's book. I think it was Breaking the Godspell. And either that or God Games, one of the two. Brilliant books, by the way. And Zechariah didn't want to talk about it. He only wanted to talk about what was in his books. So he was kind of rude about it, actually. So when I went down to LA for the seminar to get certified as a Sitchin scholar, I stood in line to have him sign my 3 books. And I said, "Hey, Zechariah, it's me. It's Bret Lueder. Do you remember talking on the phone?" And he looked down and he just barely looked up at his glass and said, "Yes, I remember." And he just he kept signing and didn't say nothing else, man.
That's it.
He didn't want no part of me.
Well, he's part of your history.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's good.
But so that's what. So
character. He was
and then Janet, you also studied Tantra. Is that correct?
Yes.
Never heard it called that, but Tantra for me.
Is it Tantra? Well, I'm an American, so.
The school
tell us briefly what is Tantra and does that cross over with the Sitchin material at all?
Yes, because the Anunnaki brought Tantra to Earth. It's a spiritual practice. It's about a way to
You can't hear you right now.
Something is going on with you, Janet.
It's energy which reconnects you with source, so you don't need an intermediary to have a spiritual connection with the divine. It's about aligning your inner and outer divine, sacred, feminine, and masculine, and you clear your chakras by going through your issues at each chakra level. So like your base chakra is survival, and your genitals is sexuality, and energy center, your heart chakra, your throat chakra, your third eye chakra, your crown chakra. And if you clear all these energies, then you have what's called a Kundalini awakening. And it's like a snake that's residing at the base of your spine. And it kind of curls up through your chakras and out the crown chakra. And then you remember who you are. It's like you can reconnect to, this is who I am as a soul, an eternal being, and why I came to Earth. So it's a very profound spiritual practice. It's a solo practice, or you could have a partner. I do it in a tantric practice with a partner. Tantra.com, and we're not really running it right now because of COVID, and plus we're old. But I keep getting people wanting us to, do classes and stuff. But it's kind of like. We don't have the place to do it anymore, and you have to kind of be able to run around naked and be loud.
Right.
I don't
know how to put it. Yeah, it's
beaches anymore.
You need a
don't
retreat
allow it anymore, huh? No more running around naked.
Just a heads up for you, Janet. You're coming in and out on us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
not sure why.
Just really quickly.
Try to move the mic closer.
Just really quick. I think it's more interference with the signal, but do what you got to do.
She's in Hawaii. We always have trouble for some reason.
So let's.
Janet in Hawaii.
Janet, just really briefly go back over the beginning part, because that was kind of cloudy. So the Anunnaki brought Tantra to Earth. Right.
And Nana set up the tantric temples in India. If you go there, you can see the temples in Khajuraho. And so they talk about it at length, and she had a spiritual practice, and she wanted to find a lover that could meet her in partnership. But and this is a mystery in the books, is like, why did her lovers, when they go to bed with her, and she wake up and they were dead? So they weren't aligned energetically, and so they'd have this incredible lovemaking. And so she was very frustrated because she was in love with Namuzi, who was Enki's youngest son, but he was killed. Long story, but he got killed. And so she was always looking for Dumuzi in her subsequent lovers, and she went a little bit crazy, because he was the only one that she could make love with that wasn't dead at the end of the road. But he was a full-blooded Anunnaki, and the other ones were, hybrids, and it might have been something in their genetics, and somehow she completely drained him. So anyway, she set up the temples, and they're still standing. Some of them are still there. People go to the, they have all these images of people making love. And have you ever seen them? Google that. Yeah, I could give you an image. Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of stuff online. Yeah. Okay. So that's good for now. So I appreciate, so just so our viewers know who we're dealing with here, since we can't see your picture, that's Janet Lessin. And I think that explanation is a great segue into our main focus, I think, here with TJ Morris. Since we're talking about sex and souls, the main purpose of the sex and the souls really is ascension, right, TJ?
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
what you send individually.
Never heard it put that way,
You awaken your Kundalini, and then you remember who you are as an eternal being. It's very important. And so, go ahead. First, I just want to add one thing. I'm also an experiencer. So I have many encounters with extraterrestrials, and that's why TJ and I were sharing our story for the last 25, 30 years. So we met in 1993. We met in 1993 in Oahu. So go ahead.
Okay, so TJ, you heard that first question, right?
No, I didn't.
So we're talking about, Janet's talking about sex and the souls and how those are related together, and the Anunnaki and them creating humans. But humans have their own destiny, right? And that's called ascension. And just give us a brief definition of ascension.
Well, when my husband, the late Thomas R. Morris, had a story, he said the people that he worked with off place, I guess you'd say in a space program, because I don't know what else to call it on a timeline. His people weren't necessarily the Anunnaki, so, or the On, or so there's many groups from up above or wherever, if you divide up the heavens from the many realms and dimensions. So ascension to me was something I had to learn about in this reality for humans, humanoid species. So I was went through death and dying as a child, and then during childbirth, giving birth to a daughter. And that was all before I even learned what the word ascension meant. Even though I was born a Christian, and meaning in America and in the church, First Baptist Church of Monroe, Louisiana, and then Trinity Baptist in West Monroe. But this is upcoming all the way up to Episcopal. But I went through the Mormon Church. I went through many world religion studies to learn what ascension was. But none of that was the reality in my psyche. So what happened is I started learning more about who I was after death, because I realized there was no thing such as death. There was just being in a human form, and we could come and go from this human form. And I started learning more about beings that people can see and can't see, became a part of the ascension to me. So I realized that there were many realms and dimensions, and heaven and below heaven, and the underbelly, and spacecraft, and those that came, and those that, some bodies that were like stars, and some bodies that were deities, and some gods and demigods, and little gods with a little g, and big God with a big G. And that from all the world religions, that beings have always come and gone, and that made a lot of sense to me. So I studied about the plates of the planet we're on, and I learned that this was a world where we were about ascension, but meaning the raising and leveling of our own psyche soul. So I learned more about, first of all, I started having these weird past lives. And while I was in the Navy, I was serving in a uniform. My husband had me, at that time, he's deceased now. I've had several husbands in the government, but the, these are two different ones, but they do have to do with my ascension journey, because they were like my guide, or had their history on planet Earth in the government. So I started assessing that men in black may also have something to do with extraterrestrials and angels and the fallen, or the watchers, the Gigi, the Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them, the Nephilim, all the beings that we learned about, whether they were giants or not. And I was having them visit me in dreams and in other levels of existence. So I learned all about myself and my experiences. And then I wrote about them from gosh, early 2000s about, I knew 2012 was going to be a shift in reality. And again in 2020, when we say the hindsight's 2020 now in 2024. So 12/21/12 we use for Ascension. But, with everything that people already have programmed in their minds about what Ascension is, I learned the important thing about Ascension was how we communicate and label it. And everyone has a different meaning. And when I first started looking it up online, it was Ascension Island, and there was a couple Ascension churches that had to do with the Catholic background, something similar, but really nothing that you could put your finger on as to what Ascension was. So there was a history that I started building while I was in Hawaii, where Janet met me, because I was on what I call my spiritual path on Ascension, because I was asking my higher self and my godmother. I believe we both all have a lineage back through our human heritage, humanoid species heritage of a mother and father, regardless as of anybody that's test tube babies now. But I also know what's being done now for humans and how they can be born. But everybody up to at least 2020 had human mother and father. And those are the originals with souls in this particular humanoid species now on the planet. So we have those, and those are like you or me or Janet. We're all human, and we have a soul, but I also believe we have a soul, higher soul path, and a higher soul that is attached or to another place in space, or actually other universes above this universe. That's just my choice of words. So it's all about words, communication, rhythms, sound, vibrations. It all goes together. Very, very complicated.
Okay, so just quick. So Ascension is, what is it?
And
Real
you
one
can't put it.
sentence.
It's so complicated. It's like God. You can't understand it. You just
Okay.
can't. It's like the unexplained God. But most people think of ascension as leveling up, like in a video game. And now they a lot of people in the spiritual science or spiritual community will relate it to the whole Earth transitioning to, that, especially in California, 4 and 5, leveling up the whole reality and consciousness. And you'll even hear it in politics in today's reality, as those that are awakened are about global consciousness or raising everybody to the same consciousness. And you'll hear Dolores Cannon maybe say in her day, back like the Borg, but she still would ascend to talk about extraterrestrials and those above. So there are various levels in ascension of beings that don't necessarily visit us, but some do. So I believe now ascension is about accepting where we are in time, space. We're dealing with everything. Everything is ascension, like God is everything. It's
Okay. Janet?
explained.
I just was looking up the meaning of ascension. So besides ascending to the throne, that type of thing,
I've got a cough.
Throne. It's the process of going up from earth to heaven, especially the process of Jesus Christ going up to heaven after his death and resurrection also equals return to life. So my understanding of what people are talking about in ascension is kind of like this process of evolution of consciousness. Sometimes it looks like the rapture that they talk about in evangelical Christianity. So that's one of the meanings. And so the part of the ascension story is that the earth is going to transcend out of her way of being right now to a higher level, a higher dimension, and then there might be a part that stays back, and they do this process all over again of having, good and bad, evil, light and dark, and so it is confusing. What is it? So it's subject to interpretation. What does it mean to you? What does ascension mean to you, Bret?
Well, I just think it's the process by which a human being betters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever that takes us,
That's a simple meaning.
If you don't get to heaven, well, then you're still better than the time you were before. So hopefully you get to reincarnate and keep that level intact so that you can build upon it in each next life and eventually get to whatever that next level is. So, just in a nutshell, that's it. Just to kind of counter TJ's really super detailed explanation, I'm just going to give you the real simple one.
Christ.
Right.
Christ.
And then let me add one thing. And you can also interpret this through the Anunnaki, the process of going up from earth to heaven. So they went back to Nibiru.
Okay.
Jesus Christ was supposed to be an Anunnaki, and he went through the transfiguration in the mound, and he did all this stuff that was unexplainable to the regular humans that were witnessing it. So they made it mystical and magical, and they said he died and resurrected, but he probably was just teleporting. If you would have looked at it through today's eyes, they would just say, oh, he's being beamed up like Star Trek.
Right. So, Janet, did you have a question for TJ?
Well, I'd like to go into your experiences, Theresa. Is that what you want, Bret, for us to go into her life story?
You asked what, follow your heart.
Okay, well, I want
Make her spill her guts.
Wow. Was this roast TJ day?
No.
Well, yes, she's on the hot seat. I can be on.
She's on the hot seat. That's right.
You're on the hot seat, and that's okay. We'll try to just keep it warm. But
well, we get to take turns.
We're not here to. You're not being interrogated. We're curious about you and want to get your story out. We're all getting older. This will be your legacy that you.
Well, I appreciate the curiosity. Bear in mind, I have a sore throat. It's that time of year.
I hear you coughing. I'm sorry that you're sick.
Yeah, I've tried to mute, so blast away.
Yeah.
But, this is going up on some places, folks, in social media. So those of you that like me, thank you. Those that don't like me, thank you.
So
it's okay. I understand. Some days I don't like me either.
I understand. Well, I'm just, your story is a very interesting one. I want to focus on your kind of paranormal, metaphysical aspects of your story. And eventually, maybe through this series of, it's not going to happen all in one episode, we'll get to your involvement with the secret space program or the space program.
One of your favorite subjects, yes.
Yes.
I don't know that Bret's ever covered that. Have you covered secret space, Bret, other than your time of missing time at your truck that time on YouTube?
I think secret space program is something that I've been a little skeptical about because it's just eyewitness testimony or whistleblower testimony.
Exactly.
And although the first time I heard about it was in '87, before I even got into this stuff, there was Soldier Dan came out and started talking about this, and it was just over my head, right?
Isn't he the guy that's deceased now?
I don't know. That's a good question because he never really came back out when it started to become in vogue, And then so now Corey Goode's come along, and he was the big hit on the circuit for a long time, and then that's all. He's now admitted that he made all that stuff up. So
well, he got some of it from reality. You mix a little with truth. He did.
Have you seen his deposition on YouTube?
Only the parts you sent me.
Right. So I mean,
I haven't had time to watch it all. I apologize. My life is.
Well, I'll just paraphrase it for you. He's basically saying he made it all up.
Okay.
So, does that mean there's no secret space program? No. From what I've learned over the last 20 plus years, I definitely think the government's into some things that they're not wanting the public to know about. I think their technology is decades ahead of ours, if not over a century ahead of ours, what the public knows.
Yeah.
And, have we been time traveling? Are we teleporting to Mars? Are we doing all that? I think we are. And so the idea that a secret space program would be in effect seems logical to me, even though I really don't know if it's real or not.
Okay, so can I interject something here?
Of course.
Okay, so both Theresa and I have been in the underground installations, and we have interacted with the military and with extraterrestrials. We have interacted with the spacecraft, with the craft that's called GUS, which is the Galactic Universal Shuttle, which was probably there were two Roswell crafts. One was whole, one exploded and was in pieces. So we're firsthand witnesses, but and we've been coming out here and there over the last. We started our show in 2012, so we've got 11 years that we've been talking about this, and our experiences go back to the 50s and the 60s. Theresa was in the military, and as part of the military, you have your surface job that you have. She was a truck driver, but then she had her missions to think, because you're not going to find like, Bob Lazar, they said, where's your paycheck? It's like, no, you're not going to get a paycheck that gives you something to track. Right. I worked for Columbus Services on Johnston Atoll, which is an underground installation underwater. And I was there from December 95 to February of 96. And there I was in the underground installation. Anyway, I am a first-hand witness, and so is Theresa. Will people believe us? What can we do? What can we say? We can only tell our story. I don't even know if you'll believe us, but I invite you to interview us. Now, what I noticed with Theresa is sometimes these people that are in these secret programs, they have, I call it like a babble program. So if you encounter information they're not supposed to tell, they'll start talking almost like in glossaria. They'll segue, they'll go over the place. And I always say, Earth to Theresa, Earth to TJ, come back.
Is it a yes or no?
And yeah, so that's and TJ is very long-winded, as you we have. So what I learned from the interview that they did with Michael Wolff, who had developed the one of the first clones, and he in '97 wrote a book at the same time as Philip J. Corso Jr., and they were out at the same time, and he died because he was in the Dulce underground battle, and he got cancer from that. So in his book called Catchers of Heaven,
that's Phil Snyder, right?
No, Michael Wolff and Paul Harris.
No, I thought you said Jesse Marcel.
No,
okay.
Jesse Marcel part of the story too. Michael Wolff was working on the Super Soldier program, where he was designing the Super Soldier and animating it and giving it life essence. So it was able to, it's a hybrid, it's a cloning system. Anyway, I segue. His book was talking about how they were trying to get his story, and when they encountered the Babel program, they had to break it down to yes and no questions. So, with your permission, if Bret and I can stop you and get you down to yes and no questions.
I think you're going to run out of time.
I know, but that's okay. That's okay. This is a setup.
Well, maybe we'll go 2 hours. I don't know if
when you're segueing, Theresa, if we can just say yes or no and break you down to yes or no.
Well, Bret, have you got any questions?
Okay, so your question is
yes.
Yes, we have questions.
Go.
I obey.
I'm sorry. I'm just
try not to talk over each other.
Okay, so my first question to you, and let me think. I have to figure out where I am. Because I know your story. When you were a little girl, you were called outside to encounter a craft. Let's start with that story. Where were you and how were you called outside to go to the meadow and go on board the craft?
Well, I had beings I could see. This isn't going to start well.
It's perfect.
But typical summarizing for the UFO business, that is huge industry. Most of us all start when we're children. Those of us that are in the space program, I guess one might say, extraterrestrial, those that are chosen for certain things on Earth. The script is we're chosen by different beings, and we see different ones, whether they're we broke it down into those of alien or ET or those that are,
well,
I
just what
guess,
was happening? What was happening
past.
that you were in a normal
Mine
world?
were teaching me. Mine were little small munchkin teachers.
Uh-huh.
My mother couldn't see, and they were my playmates, and they taught me things, how to do things. I was on television, James A. No, KNOE at channel Channel 8 in Monroe, Louisiana, by the age of 3, dancing for Mary Lou, Pat Young, and Linda Lavender. I think Linda Lavender was still alive about 8 years ago. I don't know if she still is, but these beings taught me how to do a lot of things. And that was mainly, I do remember being ambidextrous was very important. So that was an important trait, and using my mind and being able to see things. So that was as a child, the first time. And then when I went into sleep and over in the down the road, that was a different place. And we had already moved to a bigger home by then. Mother had more children, me and my sister. So when my sister came and I wanted to take her back to the store, that's when I went down and slept in the field, and they took me up for the first time. So that's when I realized, oh, you're my family. Well, I don't want to go back down there. So
Well, let me break that apart a little bit because you ran in with. I know
okay,
you're
first time they came to visit me,
So
I didn't go up.
when her little sister was born, Theresa didn't like that she had a younger sibling, so she took her sister in a bag and took her sister to her mother and said, "Mom, I don't want her. Take her back to the store."
Well, where
so
groceries came from.
so is that the time? And then she ran away. She didn't like
Yeah, I
that.
got in trouble, got in all kind of trouble. Never been in that kind of trouble before, and I ran away from home.
So
Which
she
was
ran
just
away.
two houses down where there was empty field because they were still building houses on South 7th at the time, which was real close to Plum Street Elementary. So it was just a field with a lot of mayflowers, and I went up on a spacecraft, and that's when they talked to me. So I already
Okay,
knew
so
about.
how did you get on the spacecraft? You said you were.
They left my body. Up to my first out of body experience. I can see my body laying in the field, and I went up in my other body, my astral body, my etheric body. This was the part that I wanted to know about: is how do they let us be down here, and I don't want to be here in a human form. So I knew automatically again that my family was not necessarily from here, and I put many videos about that out on YouTube.
So let me
So
explain that to Bret. So when you go back to your star family, your extraterrestrial family, there's a party that's always with them, and so when you have this homecoming, you go, oh, well, who are those people that I'm in a family with on Earth? You feel like family more than those people. Those people are kind of weird. Why am I with that family? And I can speak firsthand because it's like that's what the experience is like. It's like I don't know how I ended up with these people.
I've
This
always owned that. Yes,
yeah.
my mother knew I was different and owned that. And my grandmother told me not. When I went back, came down. My grandmother came to find me. She didn't drive. My Aunt Bella and Uncle Rufus brought her over because they had a car. And she said, "Where have you been?" I said, "Right here." And I pointed to the sky. I said, "I was up, up there in the clouds, and I want to go back." And she was like, "What?" And she was like, "You must have fallen asleep." She assumed it was a dream. She says, "Well, don't tell your mother that, that you fell asleep or whatever, but don't tell anybody that ever." So that was my first. My grandmother seemed to keep me, and she's the one that also took me to Los Alamos. So later on in the
That's a
story.
later story.
Yeah.
Do you have any
So
questions to flesh out what she just said, Bret?
Well, a little clarification first. A little
sure.
earlier, you mentioned Linda Lavender.
Uh-huh.
Did you mean Linda Lavin, that
No, Linda
actress?
Lavender was a girl that taught
Okay.
dancing and was the daughter of Mary Lou or Pat Young one. They had their own dance studio in the early 50s.
Okay.
I was born December 26, 51. And our little television show, they would put the little local kids on. We were all going to be little Shirley Temples. It was in 54 to 56. I think I started school early because I was tall and smart. Probably good to my little friends that helped me learn things, but I was pretty intelligent. First grade
Okay.
was Miss Minor, but no, Linda Lavender, she was a teacher. She's probably still there. She's probably
Okay.
not going to appreciate me being all whacked out on her now, but
Well,
oh
I don't
well.
think there's
She knew my dad.
nothing negative here that I've heard. So okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe you meant Linda Lavin, the former actress that played Rhoda on the TV show Rhoda.
No.
Okay. So I just wanted to clear that up. So just how about just give us a quick rundown of some of the big names you've come into contact with over the years, and how was it that was this all around Ascension, or was this random stuff? What was going on?
Had to deal with my psychic abilities, if you believe in those or not. I'm just a normal human. Everybody has them. I'm no different than anyone else. I just chose to sharpen them because I believed in them and I had a little help from those above, I guess one might say. But I never doubted that I wasn't I wasn't just a human. Okay. So I was about sharpening that during teenage years. And so I don't the first people that I met was in Monroe was Sonny and Cher and their mother. Oh wait, no, it wasn't. It was Cochise. Apparently, she was married to somebody, an Indian. He came to Monroe, and I met. This was in Monroe, Louisiana. They came to promote their shows, and then you won't believe it. I meet him again later on. I don't think it was Cochise, whoever Cochise was, by the star. And then I met the first time. I mean, if you just want to know movie stars,
Sure.
then the Bonanza, Lauren Green,
Sure.
Little Haas, and Little Joe. And the one I wanted to meet was Adam, and I was very upset because I had a crush on Adam, and he didn't come. And it was very disheartening when I found out he was losing his hair, but I was just a little girl then. But those were just people, and then other people that were in the. I met Floyd Kramer, and his mother was my grandmother's maid. Back then in the early 50s, they were called maids. They cleaned the house. They were the house cleaners. But Floyd Kramer was very famous, and then I met all kind of musicians, and I don't know why. Preachers that sang, you name them from Louisiana, I probably met them. I can't even think of all the preachers and the names and the famous people then, or why I was meeting famous people. The governor of Louisiana, they always said I was going to be somebody famous. I always said it would be entertaining. I met Elvis Presley. They took me to the hayride or whatever it was, something to do. Not my mother. My mother was home taking care of kids. My grandmother, aunt, my Aunt Bella and Uncle Rufus, they had high expectations for me, but they were also, he was an Indian and had some kind of Indian connection to all this, getting me to Los Alamos. But Elvis Presley is probably the most famous till I meet Michael Jackson, which you led on in the beginning of the show. But Elvis Presley, he looked at me and smiled, and he reached down off of a stage on the corner because everybody was all the teenagers and stuff were trying to see me. He wasn't that famous yet in the early 50s in Louisiana, but he'd come to Louisiana once or twice. Somehow they knew about it, and they happened to be there for some religious Masons or Gideons. He was a Gideon. I think it was a Gideon Mason or something for my grandma because I was always going to these weird meetings as a child, wearing wings or being an angel or something. Always in shows. So anyway, I was cute, and they had me, in pigtails and little saddle Oxfords, and little plaid skirt and all that, little suspenders. And anyway, I wanted to meet him, but they wanted me to meet him more than I didn't even know who Elvis Presley was. So they brought me up to the stage to meet him, and they're just little fuddy-duddy people, nothing short, fat people. But somehow I caught his eye, and he shook hands and told me I was going to really be you know, he asked me what I did, and they told him I danced and I sang, because they were pushing me backstage. They said, "Well, you're going to be really pretty and really good at what you do someday." So he was very nice to me, and that was it. But as far as Ascension, Michael Jackson and I talked in '93. I mean, I have a whole life of meeting people, presidents, Reagan, Bush. It goes with being who I am, I think, or
Okay,
my heredity.
so just to wrap up this before we hand it back to Janet, what did you and Michael Jackson talk about?
Well, I was a psychic at the time, and it's really not. I mean, it would expose a lot of stuff as a psychic that you're really not allowed to do. It's sort of a credo, like a shaman. But I can tell you that I suggested something, and he took my advice on several things. One thing was helping Las Vegas, and he knew it was going to cost a lot of money. The reason he came to me, I don't know if it's his family, because his family made T-shirts with this guy. I should have mentioned names now. The way the world is with Bush and not Bush, with the Trump. We're in an election year. I shouldn't name all these people, but with Jackson, he told me I could use his notoriety as a name because he didn't pay me. He offered to pay me, and but he found out about me either through I had an advertisement for Ascension Psychic Network, the Psychic Network, in the local newspaper, which is can be verified, and then also Watermule, Gulu Watermule, that's his name, Gulu. Gulu knew the Jackson brothers too, but I remember being and meeting them behind the scenes when they came in California, and we all shared the same promo stuff, T-shirts. But they and then Steve Wynn, he had Mirage. Anyway, there's all these famous people.
Didn't you meet him in Hawaii? TJ, you met him.
I met Michael Jackson in Hawaii. Yeah, he came there. He wanted a reading from me, so right. I wouldn't. I mean, Clinton had been there, and I wouldn't meet with Clinton and the Clintons over at Hilton, even though I was staying in a mansion right across from the Hilton, not Hilton Hawaii, but the Kahala Hilton. That's where I had that mansion. I was swimming outside the ocean, where I was supposed to meet Clinton and his wife. But I wouldn't help them, and I wouldn't help Michael. But I didn't know it was Michael. I just knew I wore a little thing on a little buzzer or something, and they kept calling me. And for several days, I guess you'd say his men in black, they just kept calling me. So they had somebody really important, but they couldn't tell me. And so I was like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. No, I don't want to meet somebody. You're not going to tell me who I'm going to meet with. And finally they said, well, what if we meet you? Where are you going to be? Blah, blah. I said, well, I'm fixing to run on Diamond Head, which at the time I was in the military, but I was out of the military. I was a GS, and I was working a GS position, and I was a reservist. And anyway, I was running a corporation, and you and I had already done Psychic Network in the 93, I think. But anyway, he came in, they met me at Diamond Head in a big limo, and I didn't even know who I was talking to, but I passed the information between the men in black to Jackson. I didn't know it was Michael Jackson till the end, when I'd given him all the information he wanted on Las Vegas and helping downtown and putting up the overhead, like I told him in Caesars, the lights and stuff to help downtown Vegas, because they were hurting real bad. And I guess his friend was the mayor, governor, somebody, I don't know. But that was part of it. I'm not going to say a lot of the personal stuff, and I also did recommend he be the pop, which he already was, but like Elvis Presley, because it was in my mind about him being king of rock, say him to be the king of pop, and that he should probably marry Lisa Presley at the time. And he said, Lisa shouldn't even know who I am. I said, well, get in touch with her mother, and they're having trouble with Graceland right now, and I'm sure they'll work a deal with you for a year or two or whatever. So I just gave him the idea for that. He didn't really like that idea, but apparently it did happen. So, but he came to me for advice, So I gave him advice that, later on I learned it did work out for him. And other advice, he did show me a couple of dance moves. He rented a restaurant for like $5K or something. But he told me he would, he didn't have as much money as people told him he did and stuff like that. But he told me I could use his notoriety anytime I wanted to. But he said the only problem I would have was his family, but not his mother. But just tell her that he told me, because he didn't pay me, and I was nice about the money, and she would understand. He didn't have all the money people thought he said. He guess he owed everybody, at least the time he saw me. But we had some real interesting talks. He was very much into my Ascension Center nonprofit, me his. we were both going to help each other. You know, we both had the "we are the world" kind of thing, and I was sort of Star Trek after I knew who he was. To be honest with you,
Sure.
I was really nice once he, you know, the next night, the first night I didn't spend with him. He was in his limo. You know, he went on and did whatever he had to do.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
Well, it's interesting because I met Michael Jackson after he died. And I'm a psychic as well, but I don't promote it and I don't do readings like Theresa. I've just always been psychic. So I was in the middle of a deposition and I was terrified. Sasha left. I let him go home. We were being sued, and I won't say what it was about, but basically, there's always been people trying to steal property here in Maui. That's a long story, going back 20, 30 years. So I was very nervous. I was in a room fire. I started to get like arrhythmia. My heart started racing. And Michael literally yells in my ear. Well, we had just heard that he had died at lunchtime. There's a break. And somebody came in and said, Michael Jackson just died. And everybody, little kids, remember when they heard Michael Jackson. And it was like we had to go back. They said, we got to go back to the deposition. And they all turned into lawyers again. Oh, you're leaving? Oh, you're good. So then, let me get back to where it was at. So I started, they put me under oath, everything is going to say the truth. And my heart started racing. I was just terrified. And Michael screamed in my ear, tell him you're sick. And it was like almost he was saying it, and I was saying, I feel sick. And it was like the magic words. And of course, he's been in a lot of depositions. And so they started packing up their bags, and he said, reschedule. You're sick. We're leaving. Goodbye. So I was left in the room, dumbstruck. And so I got my keys and I got my car and I started to drive home. And I'm still like nervous and like what was that? And Michael's singing, "Whenever you need me, I'll be there." And he starts singing to me, and it's like his songs he's going over and over like in reruns, repeats. And I get home. And then he went into 2 or 3 of the early songs, like his childhood songs. And they were all, I can't remember the other 2, but it was a repeat of 3 songs. And I'm trying to have dinner with Sasha and clean the dinner dishes. And I go to sleep. And every time I had to get up and pee, the songs were going. And then I got up the next day and we were going through the day. And I said, Sasha, I said, I have to tell you something. What? I said, Michael Jackson's haunting me. I can't get rid of his songs in my head. And I like Michael, but, I'm older than Michael. I wasn't like a rock, a fan, So he said, okay, we'll do a regression because he does hypnosis. And as soon as I got under, Michael came through and he was so powerful. I was lying on my back. I had to sit up and throw my head forward. And Sasha says, allow him to come through without taking over. You can use Janet's voice to speak, but don't take her over. Don't own her. Don't possess her. So they were going on for hours, and I was just sobbing, and I was processing it as if I was Michael. I was just sobbing. So when Michael, and then I could see him in my mind's eye, third eye, mind's eye chakra, and Farrah Fawcett. When he came through, Farrah Fawcett was holding him. Kind of like that image of Jesus laying in Mother Mary's arms, and she's just holding him, and he's sobbing, and he's just sobbing. And so then I'm trying to get the whole sequence. Anyway, we talked for about an hour, and then at the very end, Michael kind of left, and we said, okay, Michael, you can come back anytime. We'll see you again next week. We agreed to do another session with him. And I had a full week of Tantra school. So I was like, okay, we'll meet next week. So Farrah was tapping on my shoulder, and I said, oh, wait, Sasha, I think Farrah wants to talk. So then we allowed Michael to leave, and Farrah came in, and she said, I didn't know what to do. He was so distraught. She said, I was just trying to comfort him. And I said, yeah, I heard that you had died too today, just a few hours apart from each other, right? And she said, well, I want to go over. I see all my family and they're waving for me. And so we said, well, yeah, of course, you need to cross over. She says, but I want you and Dr. Lessin to learn how to work with the dead. She said, they're all around. There's people that are just out of body and they're distraught and they can't figure out how to move on. I said, well, I'll do the best I can.
And some people you can't help, Janet.
No.
But Brett, I will tell you that Michael Jackson did come to me. Well, apparently he wasn't as dead as we thought, because I was watching television and I got him visiting me and turn on the TV. I swear to God, I didn't even believe it. So I had told Janet about that years ago, but my husband didn't believe me either when I said Michael Jackson's dead, but he told me what was going on. And I told him I would fight for him. And I mean, even as an investigator, I would make sure, and I made sure certain people in certain places knew about the doctor from Houston, right? Because he made sure he was very, very upset. He was very upset that he on the other side, when he wasn't, I had to watch it on TV while it was still happening with him going to the hospital and all that. It was, I mean, it was amazing, but I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. But he told me it was the doctor and from Houston, and that he did it.
Yeah, he didn't leave for about 2 months. He stayed around, and we did sessions for him for many weeks on end, and he was just very upset. And so I took him. I said, okay, let's go see what's going on. I didn't know what's going on. I don't have TV, so I wasn't getting it. And so I said, well, let's see what's going on. So I can correlate what you're saying.
It's very interesting how certain people communicate and others don't. And I don't understand that anymore. When I'm doing psychic readings, some people, their dead sons will come through and some they don't. And I cannot tell anyone why certain people will come through to certain people. But that's something I would like to cover as part of our program in the future, is how do we communicate with those, because apparently we were somehow dumbed down about all those levels of existence in our dream state. We spend a lot of time sleeping and a lot of times dreaming,
right?
But those all are part of us, as well as those when we know we've left our body. And I was taken to meet Dolores Cannon, and there's a lot of people I've met on my path that I would like to study or have someone's assistant like you, Brett, because we're all journalists. Mm-hmm. And of all you journalists, send in your 2024 SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists fees. I got my deal for this year, to be a senior journalist with them. If you're writing with us, and of course prove your sources. And that's one thing that Brett's trying to say. It's very hard to prove when it's strictly hearsay evidence.
Right.
Brett, but do you want to go another hour, or you want to cut it?
I've got stuff to do. Yeah, I thought we were just going to do an hour.
Right,
so I can do 2 hours sometimes, but I have to have notice to do 2 hours.
Do you have any follow-up question or comments on what we just said?
I would say fascinating to listen to both of you. And I don't know if we want to do a part 2 with TJ next week, or if we want, because I'm sure TJ, we just scratched the surface with TJ.
Oh,
but Janet, maybe we should do something with Janet next week, where TJ and I interview you next week, and then and just go from there. And then we can go switch back to Janet. I would have to say I'm the least interesting of the three of us, so I'm definitely good at asking questions.
Everyone has a story, Brett. It's just whether you're willing to share it with, who's left on planet Earth. A lot of our friends are gone now. We're a skeleton crew now, and I expect, I don't know how many people are going to even care who we were, other than our story fits in with everybody else's. We can support others, but I did work with J. Allen Hynek. I didn't mention him, that. And J. Allen Hynek asked me, of course, 85, 86, Ronald Reagan and all that. And I don't know, there's a lot of people that it would be interesting to see how it goes with the UFO story, if you know what I mean. I met Jesse Marcel and all that. I never did meet Stan Freeman in person, but he talked to me a lot on the phone and on radio shows. And, he got me to go to the 2016 in Memphis, the on a Mid-South Conference. But anyway, he and I both had the investigation with Jesse Marcel and Glenn Dennis. And we both worked with one of the other. Anyway, a lot of people that they don't know before APRO and out of DC. A lot of old guys that worked with.
So you guys going to keep talking?
Down.
No, I'm going to sign off because I have water.
Okay, me too.
All right.
But I would like to just answer your question. Yes, I think it'd be good to go back and forth, but there's also a weaving. Theresa and I had a lot of similar things, and it's like we've been interacting with each other for the last 30-some years, and some of it wasn't in the same room at the same time, but we were part of the same story. It was like we were just traveling in the same.
How they weave.
Yeah, we were doing a weave. But let's honor your time. Thank you, Bret. And Theresa, can I call you when this is done and have a conversation? A brief conversation. I'm going to call you. So answer the phone.
Thank you, ladies. We'll see you guys next week, okay?
Yes,
okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Ciao for now.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to show this last